Blasco's here, his nephew Chase.
All right. Now, my next guest is one of the greatest arcade legends and is also known for having the greatest hair in video games. Give it up for Billy Mitchell. Come on in, Billy. Have a seat. Right there. All right, now, Billy.
Sure.
Pac-Man or Donkey Kong? Which one do you find most iconic?
Well, it's kind of like asking who's the best football player. There isn't an answer. It matters the context you're asking. Pac-Man introduced the video game world to more and more people. It opened it up to women. It was a very non-intimidating game. To many people, myself included, it was the first introduction to something that was scary that was coming out in the world called the computer. And it introduced the computer, again, in a very lighthearted way that you had fun with as you began to explore that world. It ran everywhere. I mean, it was on cereal boxes, it was cartoons, it was on TV shows, it was on sitcoms, it was in every bar, it was every restaurant, it was in schools, it was in the doctor's offices. You couldn't escape the icon that had been created. And even today, it is said that Pac-Man is the most recognized icon in the world. So it had that impact in the world, and it had such a positive effect, besides the fact that it took everybody's money. And so I believe Pac-Man always has that place in history. For some reason, I can't necessarily put my finger on it, Donkey Kong as a game, at least in the classic gaming world, seems to stand above or slightly above other games. People recognize it, they understand the gameplay. For some reason, we as classic gamers find it the most appealing to gather, to relive times, to try to get better, to share information, to create contests, to have fun. Because the truth of the matter is, we have these events and we have fun. It isn't really that intense for any of us anymore. The truth of the matter is, it's almost a reason for us to get together as friends. The emotional issue is sort of shifted a little, and Donkey Kong has that place in history.
Now, you are known as the King of Kong. Now, you've had to defend that title quite a number of times during your career. What keeps you coming back to that particular game?
Well, it was 1986 or so when I realized no matter how much I liked video games, I couldn't just play video games forever. I mean, I had to be a real person with a real life. So the truth of the matter is, I started to focus my attention elsewhere at what I would do for a living, and it wasn't video games. It's sort of my real job, you know, which is the business that I have. But when video games reached about the 20-year mark, say in 1999, like a car becomes a classic. And suddenly there's a renewed interest and people want to talk about it, or get one, have one. Well, that's the way video games work. And competition began to come again. It began to happen, it began to organize. And so I began to pick up to rebuild the skills that I had then. Well, the truth of the matter is, and any parent out here can attest to it, the disposable time you had as a teenager to get that good, to get to the top of the world on a game, to be the #1 player, you simply don't have that time to put into new games. You don't. I mean, if you did, you'd lose your spouse, you'd lose your kids, you'd lose everything. So it's easier to simply go back to the games you know and perfect them and over-perfect them. You mentioned defending titles. Well, I got the kill screen in Donkey Kong in 1982. It was sometime after the year 2000 that the next person got it. So I'm kind of not sensitive to it. When Neil Armstrong got to the moon, did he think he'd be the only one to ever get to the moon? eventually other people, other friends, other colleagues would follow. And every time somebody does, I'm very happy about it. I congratulate them. And the fact of the matter is, again, different things keep drawing us together. Really, the competitiveness that comes back to cause each one of us, myself for example, to pull a record back. Really, we're friends. It's kind of kicking each other in the teeth a little. It's having fun, it's stealing it back, it's aggravating them, it's making them lose sleep. There's maybe a few of us that lose sleep. There's not any real harsh emotion amongst us. Not amongst the very top players. Below that, there's a level of players. Wannabes, yeah, they lose sleep. They lose sleep every night. They lose sleep when there's an interview like this. They lose sleep that the camera or the attention's not on them. But sometimes I talk to them and I go, well, what are you doing about it? Well, what do you mean? And I go, well, this is what this guy did. This is what this guy did. What are you doing? You're behind the keyboard. All you do is sit behind the keyboard and bitch. I says, as I've said before, you want the fame, you have to pay the price. You can't pay half price. You get the booby price. Well, I go, well, why don't you go ahead and apply yourself exactly the way you should. Nobody gets to medical school paying half price. Everybody has to go through the same problem. You want to be a lawyer, you want to be a police officer, you want to own a business. There's a price to be paid, but there's always a group that they don't want to pay that price. They just want to get the benefit. Sorry, did I go off track on that?
No, well said, sir. Well said.